light, time, and space changes, and that soon I shall go into a different time and a different space.
24 banned TV shows, 7 levels. From a UK sitcom about a school with depraved, unhinged teachers, to a blackface comedy sketch that triggered a mass streaming purge.
Oh, you're my wife now.
These are some of the most disturbing TV shows ever to be banned from broadcast. We're going to start with some of the more unsettling shows and slowly dive into some truly disturbing shows. Let's start at the tip of the iceberg. Level 1. Cooked with 2020. On April 20th, 2020, that's for 2020 for those in the know, Netflix debuted Cooked with a competition cooking show featuring 3 professional chefs per episode battling to create elaborate multi-course meals laced with precise doses of THC and CBD for a $10,000 prize. The series showcased contestants infusing everything from appetizers to desserts with compounds, while celebrity guests would consume these potent creations on camera, gradually becoming visibly high as they progressed through each meal. Every episode featured themes like grilled backyard barbecue and futurist food, where chefs incorporated everything from infused oils to terpene extracts. It was a pretty basic concept. The world would love it. Well, almost. Officials in Singapore were particularly concerned about how the program normalized consumption through entertainment. The show presented not as an illicit substance, but as a sophisticated culinary ingredient. Within weeks of its release, Singapore's censorship board demanded Netflix remove the series entirely from its platform in the country. This wasn't an isolated incident. Singapore is known for its zero-tolerance stance on and had previously forced Netflix to remove 3 other cannabis-themed programs: Cooking on High, The Legend of 420, and Disjointed. The government explicitly cited concerns about the glorification of use and potential influence on young viewers. It believed Netflix was encouraging kids to get high through cooking. Netflix complied with the written takedown demand, later confirming that it had removed 13 titles globally due to government demands since its inception, with more than half of these removals occurring in Singapore alone. The show is still available pretty much everywhere else, but those in Singapore have to get high on their own non-drug supply. Level 2. The League of Gentlemen, 1999, Blackface episode. In 2000, the popular British sketch show The League of Gentlemen introduced one of its most notorious characters of all, Papa Lazaro. The character was played by one of the show's core creators, Reese Shearsmith, in black and white face paint, and terrified audiences with his unsettling mannerisms, inexplicable accent, and bizarre behavior. He was just weird. The character actually came from a real-life inspiration. Papa Lazaro was based on Shearsmith and co-creator Steve Pemberton's actual landlord, Peter Papa Lazaro. This landlord would call their flat repeatedly, asking for Dave, despite no one by that name living there, and refusing to speak to anyone but Pemberton. These weird phone interactions became Lazaro's catchphrase, "Hello, Dave."
Hello, Dave.
Like most characters in this show, Papa Lazaro's appearances were deliberately crafted to unsettle viewers. He would force his way into women's homes posing as a peg seller, speaking incomprehensible gibberish and calling everyone Dave until they surrendered their wedding rings. Then he'd utter his signature line, "You're my wife now,"
Oh, you're my wife now.
and abduct these confused women to add to his growing collection of wives. As the show went on, the disturbing behaviors grew. As a circus ringmaster, he imprisoned women in circus animal cages and maintained a book of wives dating back over a century. When he was in disguise, he used makeup techniques learned from his many wives to appear normal. By the 2017 special, he'd created an underground wife mine where he trapped women beneath a photo booth. He just got stranger. But the character became unexpectedly popular with the British public, with "Hello Dave" popping up just about everywhere. Shearsmith even mentioned being accosted with the catchphrase in public restrooms. However, in June 2020, during the George Floyd protests, Netflix removed the show due to Papa Lazaro's blackface makeup. Despite Shearsmith insisting it was not me doing a black man, but rather clown-like makeup designed to evoke the child catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the controversy refused to die down. The removal happened alongside other shows featuring blackface, including Little Britain and The Mighty Boosh, as streaming platforms reconsidered racially insensitive content from earlier decades. Surprisingly, many people have pointed out that the character also perpetuates stereotypes about travelers and gypsy circus folk that received way less scrutiny than the blackface aspect, despite being just as undeniably offensive. The Twilight Zone, 1959 to 1964, The Encounter episode. On May 1st, 1964, The Twilight Zone aired The Encounter, an episode that would never be broadcast on television again until 2016. The episode centered on two men locked in an attic: Fenton, a World War II veteran played by Neville Brand, and Arthur Takamori, a Japanese-American gardener portrayed by George Takei. It begins with Fenton cleaning his attic when Arthur arrives, offering to mow his lawn. Fenton invites him up for a beer. After that, a tense confrontation unfolds between these two men from once opposing races, as the episode description describes it. Hanging on the wall is a Japanese samurai sword, a war trophy Fenton took from a soldier he killed during combat. The sword bears an inscription, "This sword will avenge me." As they drink and talk, Fenton's inherent racism starts to come out. He calls Arthur boy, uses slurs, and questions his American identity despite Arthur being born in the US. At some point, the door mysteriously locks, trapping them together. Not long after that, the sword seems to exert a mysterious supernatural power over both men. But then comes the controversial twist that got the episode banned in the first place. Arthur confesses that his father was a spy who helped guide Japanese planes during the Pearl Harbor attack. That single plot point was powerful and highly damaging. It was considered to reinforce harmful propaganda that Japanese Americans couldn't be trusted, the very sentiment that led to internment camps where George Takei himself was imprisoned as a child. It didn't go down well. The episode ends violently. Arthur grabs the sword, attacks Fenton, then leaps from the window shouting, "Banzai!" Banzai! Fenton, overcome by guilt, admits to taking the sword from a Japanese soldier who had surrendered, not in combat as he claimed. Civil rights groups protested the episode's perpetuation of harmful stereotypes, forcing CBS to pull it from syndication immediately. When it finally returned in 2016, audiences could see both its artistic merits and its problematic elements with a fresh perspective, but it still felt viscerally uncomfortable to sit through. Clone High, 2002 to 2003, offensive depiction. Clone High launched on MTV in 2002, presenting a world where historical figures were cloned and placed in high school. The show featured teenage versions of Abraham Lincoln, Joan of Arc, JFK, and Cleopatra as its leads, forcing them to navigate adolescent drama. But most controversial among the characters was Gandhi, reimagined as the school's hyperactive party animal nicknamed G-Man.
Wow, I need a minute to think about this.
While other characters wildly diverged from their historical counterparts for comedic effect, Gandhi's portrayal struck a particularly sensitive nerve. The animated version behaved as an attention-seeking teenager obsessed with popularity and partying, the polar opposite of the real Gandhi's disciplined lifestyle. Now, the show aired without incident in North America, with everybody getting the joke. But all that changed in January 2003 when news of Gandhi's portrayal reached India. The reaction was swift and furious. For many Indians, Gandhi represents a revered spiritual leader and national hero, so the animated depiction felt like a deliberate mockery of his sacred legacy. Which it was, but that was the point. Approximately 150 Indian politicians, including Gandhi's grandson, mobilized in protest against the show, gathering at Gandhi's memorial and outside MTV's India offices where they began fasting. a form of protest with deep symbolic meaning given Gandhi's own history with hunger strikes. The situation reached a boiling point when protesters effectively trapped a visiting Viacom executive inside the building. Their demands escalated to an ultimatum: remove the show or lose MTV's broadcasting license in India entirely. Under intense pressure, MTV released a statement. MTV US apologizes if we have offended the people of India and the memory of Mahatma Gandhi. Behind the scenes, creators desperately pitched solutions to resolve the crisis. Their ideas basically came down to two things. They would reveal the character was actually a clone of 1980s sitcom actor Gary Coleman, or they would remove him entirely. Ultimately, they didn't have to make the choice. MTV canceled Clone High after just 13 episodes, ending on an unresolved cliffhanger. 20 years later, HBO Max revived the series with one notable change. Gandhi remains permanently frozen in ice. When asked about this decision, co-creator Christopher Miller replied simply, "We're stupid, but not that stupid." Luck, 2011 to 2012, numerous animal deaths. In January 2012, HBO released its latest big show, Luck, promoted as prestige television at its finest. Created by acclaimed Sopranos director David Milch and featuring direction from Academy Award-winning director Michael Mann, the series starred Dustin Hoffman as Chester Ace Bernstein, a businessman freshly released from prison and plotting revenge against those who betrayed him. Obviously, that cast and crew made it an almost certain hit. Set against the gritty backdrop of horse racing, the show delved into the complex world of jockeys, trainers, owners, and gamblers at Santa Anita Park in California. And it was a hit. Critics were effusive about the production, highlighting its impossibly good cast and writing so spot on it's poetic. HBO, confident in its potential, renewed Luck for a second season immediately after its premiere. Unfortunately, it would never air. Reports started to emerge that during filming of the first season in 2011, two thoroughbreds broke their legs during racing sequences and were. Despite these incidents, production continued under the monitoring of the American Humane Association. That was more than enough to cause controversy, but then came the breaking point. While filming Season 2 in March 2012, a third horse reared up while being led back to its stall, fell backward, and struck its head on the ground. The animal's injuries were deemed too severe, and it was put down at the track. The day after this third death, HBO canceled Luck entirely. The optics were not good. PETA had already been raising concerns, having urged producers before filming began to use stock racing footage instead of live animals. After the first casualties, the organization obtained death reports revealing that older arthritic horses had been used in dangerous racing scenes, effectively guaranteeing they would have to be put down. Whistleblowers quickly came forward with allegations that thoroughbreds were potentially or underfed during the shoot. An investigation by The Hollywood Reporter suggested the harm to horses was more extensive than initially reported and possibly preventable. HBO was under fire left and right. At least they canceled it in time. But why follow another show that will inevitably get canceled when you can just subscribe to our channel and be guaranteed more high-quality content? Let's move on to the next level. Level 3. Mr. Rogers Conflict Episode. In November 1983, Fred Rogers aired 5 episodes titled Mr. Rogers Talks About Conflict during the 14th season of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. The episodes were designed to venture into territory few children's shows dared to explore: the threat of war. But after April 5th, 1996, they were never seen again. The storyline unfolded in the neighborhood of make-believe, where King Friday the 13th discovered Cornflake Especially, manufacturing mysterious parts for neighboring Southwood. Instead of investigating further, the king immediately jumped to the conclusion that Southwood was building bombs. His response? Order 1 million similar parts and order everybody in the neighborhood to help build weapons of their own. Lady Elaine Fairchild refused to participate, declaring she wouldn't help construct these deadly destructive devices. Meanwhile, Lady Aberlin and Bob Dog formed a peace delegation to discover the truth. The tension among these beloved characters escalated over multiple episodes as viewers wondered whether these peaceful puppets would actually engage in armed conflict. Eventually, the delegation discovered Southwood was building a bridge with the parts, not weapons. The arc concluded with a peace festival where Keith David repurposed the accumulated bomb parts into something constructive: record players for schools. So, a happy ending after all of the will they won't they drama. But the timing could not have been more perfect. Even though they weren't created specifically in response to ABC's notoriously graphic nuclear war film The Day After, the episodes aired during heightened Cold War tensions when nuclear annihilation felt like a genuine possibility for many. They heightened the anxiety of children substantially. PBS pulled these episodes in 1996, deeming the content too disturbing for young audiences. The threat of nuclear war had lessened by that point, but the impact of the episodes never did. Monty Python's Flying Circus, 1969 to 74. In 1979, British comedy troupe Monty Python released their masterpiece Life of Brian in theaters around the world. Almost. Actually, the film disappeared before Malaysian viewers could even glimpse it. Government censors had labeled it blasphemous and deeply offensive to religious sensibilities, which, to be fair, was probably true. The Malaysian Film Censorship Board examines all media before release, wielding extraordinary power to cut scenes or issue outright bans if it believes the content to be dangerous or harmful. For Life of Brian, they chose complete prohibition, claiming that the movie would be disrespectful or harmful to social harmony. For many in the West, this seemed kind of insane, but Malaysia's population includes over 63% Muslims alongside significant Christian, Buddhist, and Hindu communities. It's such a multi-faith environment that there is always heightened sensitivity around religious portrayals, with the government positioning itself as guardian against potentially offensive content. Schindler's List got blocked for allegedly asking for sympathy, The Prince of Egypt for depicting Prophet Moses, and surprisingly even Babe got banned for, well, featuring a pig. That's not a joke, by the way. If you defy the ban, you will face the consequences, though the severity depends on the crime. Individuals caught screening, selling, or possessing forbidden films face fines, imprisonment up to 20 years, or both. Other countries that banned the movie eventually relaxed their stance. Norway reversed its Life of Brian ban in 1980 and Ireland in 1987. But Malaysia maintains its position even to this day. Michael Palin insisted that the controversy was overblown, that the movie wasn't ridiculing Jesus but caricaturing political militants. But it made no difference. Many Malaysian citizens have never legally viewed these influential comedy classics that the world celebrates and admires freely. But hey, always look on the bright side of life, right? The Ali G Show, 2000 to 2004. In 2000, Sacha Baron Cohen introduced a brand new character to his hugely popular Da Ali G Show, Borat Sagdiyev, a Kazakh journalist who was built to be offensive. Borat's thick accent, his bizarre customs, his relentless barrage of stereotypes, nothing about the act was subtle, nor was it supposed to be. Kazakhstan, his supposed homeland, was painted as a place stuck in some warped time capsule constructed for the most offensive jokes about race, gender, and tradition. The country was the punchline, and they unsurprisingly did not react with a positive wah wah wee wah. Kazakhstan officials blocked Baron Cohen's Borat website, suspended the .kz domain, and threatened legal action, all in an effort to stop what they called bad-mouthing of the country. They released official statements saying that Borat's portrayal was utterly unacceptable, a concoction of bad taste and ill manners, and the government would do whatever it took to prevent more of these pranks. In their eyes, these weren't jokes, but a campaign to present Kazakhstan as backward, racist, and primitive, a country where women and minorities were treated as less than human. And while Kazakhstan was the most vocally angry about the whole ordeal, they weren't the only ones. Borat's routines were a minefield of racial and ethnic stereotypes delivered with a straight face to unsuspecting interviewees. That was the joke. The "Throw the Jew Down the Well" song performed in a Texas bar was a moment that made international headlines for its open bigotry, all under the guise of exposing America. To be fair, it did. In other bits, especially in the highly celebrated movie, Borat describes Kazakh traditions that involved treating women worse than animals, bragged about incest, and introduced his sister as the number 4 in all of Kazakhstan. Unfortunately for, well, the world, many people are not good at identifying satire, so they simply took Baron Cohen's joke at face value, believing that Kazakhstan really was, as Borat described, exactly what the country was worried about. But the government's attempts to control the narrative only fueled more media attention, making Borat the most famous Kazakh in the world, all for the wrong reasons. Eventually, they came to realize that Borat was literally the only thing that the world knew about Kazakhstan and decided to change their tune dramatically, embracing him as a tourist icon and using him and his catchphrases in their marketing campaigns. Very nice. Hardwick House, 1987, Provocative Themes. On February 24, 1987, UK broadcaster ITV unleashed a sitcom so shocking it lasted only 2 episodes before being yanked off the air forever. Hardwick House presented a dysfunctional, comprehensive school where teachers behave far, far worse than their pupils. Okay, sure, we've had a lot of teacher and school-based sitcoms since, so we know the premise wasn't the problem. But the content really was problematic. Hardwick House centered on a collection of deeply disturbed educators led by headmaster R.G. Wickham. Now, when I say deeply disturbed, I mean it. These weren't just strict teachers, but people depicted as truly depraved individuals who took pleasure in tormenting students. Deputy Head Mr. Fowle would regularly intimidate pupils with implements like electric cattle prods, while other staff members harbored inappropriate attractions to students or engaged in shocking acts of physical intimidation. One teacher even ran an illicit broadcasting operation from school grounds, while another used classroom time to pitch questionable business schemes. Basically, it wasn't a very family-friendly show. While the first episode aired, switchboards at ITV lit up with complaints, with viewers expressing disbelief at what they were witnessing. Newspapers declared the show the most tasteless series ever and absolutely disgusting. The portrayal of authority figures taking advantage of young people crossed a line that British audiences weren't prepared to accept, with parents' groups mobilizing against the program and demanding its immediate removal from scheduled programming. Even advertisers began threatening to pull their commercials from ITV's lineup if the show continued. It was a disaster. Despite 5 additional episodes having been filmed at considerable expense, ITV executives made an unprecedented decision. After just 2 airings on consecutive nights, Hardwick House was permanently shelved. The remaining episodes never saw the light of day. Throughout the 1980s, British television was full of alternative comedy pushing the boundaries, but Hardwick House simply proved too extreme for viewers. Level 4. Australia's Naughtiest Home Videos, 1992. In 1992, Australian television viewers witnessed the debut of Australia's Naughtiest Home Videos on the 9 network. This risque spin-off of the family-friendly Australia's Funniest Home Videos was designed to push boundaries with content so provocative that network television would never allow it. Host Doug Mulray introduced the program with suggestive jokes and double entendres that immediately signaled this wasn't standard primetime fare. Boy, he wasn't kidding. The show featured amateur clips that were a little more adult in nature, including people losing swimwear during water activities, individuals caught in compromising positions, and animals engaging in natural mating behavior. The content wasn't technically explicit by today's standards, sure, but it featured enough suggestive material to shock 1990s audiences. Mulray's innuendo-laden commentary pushed it even further into adult territory. But approximately 34 minutes into the broadcast, viewers suddenly found themselves watching a commercial break that never ended. They had no idea what had happened. Well, behind the scenes, chaos had erupted. The head of the Nine Network, Kerry Packer himself, had phoned the network control room confused about what he saw on his channel. He reportedly demanded, "Get that shit off the air immediately." The station manager complied without hesitation, replacing the remainder of the show with an episode of Cheers. Newspaper headlines the following day detailed Packer's unprecedented intervention, detailing how he had sat at home becoming increasingly outraged by the parade of inappropriate content invading Australian living rooms. To this day, it's one of the only times a show has been cancelled while airing its first episode. For years, the unaired portion remained hidden from public view until 2008, when Nine Network finally broadcast the complete program late at night with appropriate content warnings. By then, Australia's Naughtiest Home Videos had secured its place in broadcasting infamy. It also seemed quite harmless compared to other shows at the time. Married with Children, 1989. In 1989, Married with Children produced an episode so shocking that Fox refused to broadcast it. I'll See You in Court was filmed on January 6 but remained hidden from American viewers for 13 years. The plot revolved around Al and Peg Bundy discovering they were secretly recorded during intimate moments at the sleazy Hop On In motel. Their neighbors, Steve and Marcy Rhodes, experienced the same violation. Ironically, Peg found the Rhodes tape first and watched it with Al before realizing who was on screen and what was going on. Turned on by what they saw, the Bundys proceeded with their own activities, unwittingly creating another recording. Together, both couples sued the establishment. Fox executives were horrified, despite branding itself as television's edgy newcomer and definitely living up to that title. This episode crossed too many lines. The dialogue contained explicit references to marital activities, with the Bundys' disappointing bedroom life getting most of the focus. But the timing of this episode couldn't have been worse. Conservative activist Terry Ricolta had just launched a boycott of the show after watching another risque episode, Her Cups Runneth Over, in which Al ogles a naked woman. According to her, it was and offensive. She made such a fuss over it that her campaign frightened major advertisers like Coca-Cola into pulling their commercials from the show. Already stung by losing that ad money, Fox demanded numerous cuts to the courtroom episode, but the creators refused to compromise, causing a stalemate behind the scenes that led to Fox refusing to air the episode at all. While international viewers enjoyed the episode, Americans only heard whispers about the mysterious lost episode, which had aired before DVDs were a thing. For 13 years, it remained locked away in America while airing across Europe and Canada. Finally, in June 2002, cable network FX broadcast a version, though it was a version with 4 controversial lines removed. In the courtroom scenes, uncomfortable details of the Bundys' lackluster romantic life were described graphically, leaving the jury so unimpressed that despite ruling in the Bundys' favor, they awarded them nothing while giving the Rhodes $10,000. Typical Bundy luck. The Mescaline Experiment. In December 1955, sitting comfortably in his Surrey home, Labour MP Christopher Mayhew swallowed 400 milligrams of mescaline hydrochloride while BBC cameras rolled. This wasn't reckless behavior or just a typical day off for a politician. Well, it probably was for some, but this time it was science, supervised by psychiatrist Dr. Humphrey Osmond, the man who coined the term psychedelic. The footage shows Mayhew before the ingestion. He was articulate, composed, a rising political star. He'd recently presented a well-received documentary series called Men Seeking God. Now he was chasing transcendence through chemistry. He wanted to be a guinea pig. Within 30 minutes, things changed. Mayhew reported physical fatigue, curious sensations at the top of his spine, and nausea. Suddenly, colors developed behind his closed eyelids, and even simple arithmetic became challenging. When asked to subtract 7 from 100, he fumbled through numbers and struggled to do even basic math. Suddenly, Mayhew described experiencing events outside time. He insisted he was perceiving reality in 2 parallel dimensions simultaneously. He claimed to have seen a whole series of things happening, but not in a series.
It's now 18 minutes to 3. But I know now that my time and space changes, and that soon I shall go into a different time and a different space.
He said that whatever he saw was not going forward or backward, it just was. The experiment continued for hours. Throughout, Mayhew maintained he was having genuine mystical experiences, witnessing dimensions beyond ordinary perception opening before him while his physical body remained in a chair. The BBC planned to broadcast this unprecedented footage as part of their scientific coverage. Mayhew himself pushed for it, insisting even 30 years later that his experience was profound and meaningful. But behind the scenes, concerns mounted. What message would this send? A respected politician hallucinating on camera? Intentionally? A special committee was assembled of psychiatrists, philosophers, and theologians who unanimously declared Mayhew's experience was not legitimately mystical, but basically a 40-year-old man tripping. The footage was shelved. For decades, the experiment existed only as a rumor. Fragments eventually appeared in documentaries starting in 1986, confirming that this had happened, though the full footage was denied any release. Today, we can find clips like this one online, but the British establishment really doesn't want you to see politicians getting high. Well, they don't want you to know you're seeing them high. The Tweenies, the Jimmy Savile episode. In 2001, the creators of the popular British children's program Tweenies produced an episode titled Favorite Songs. Jake, Fizz, Milo, and Bella decided to perform their beloved tunes in a talent show format. Super simple premise. Jake struggles to select just one favorite tune from his many cherished melodies, while the others prepare enthusiastically for their musical showcase. But the episode took a disturbing turn when character Max appeared dressed as Jimmy Savile, complete with blonde wig and tracksuit, which was undeniably Savile's trademark appearance during his time hosting BBC's Top of the Pops. Max even mimicked Savile's distinctive accent and used his catchphrase, "Now then, guys and gals." It should be noted that at the time of filming, Savile remained a celebrated BBC personality. There were no public allegations, though many at the BBC knew the dark truth. However, the puppeteers and writers couldn't have anticipated what would emerge after Savile's death in 2011 at age 84. Police investigations would later reveal Savile harmed over 200 individuals across 6 decades, many victimized on BBC premises. That open secret poured out. But the episode was produced before all of that, so no controversy, right? Wrong. On January 20th, 2013, CBeebies, the BBC channel for young viewers age 4 to 6, inadvertently broadcast this episode before 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning. That's 2013, after Savile's behavior had become public knowledge. Viewers immediately took to social media. Are BBC trying to self-destruct? Max from Tweenies dressed as Jimmy Savile just now nearly chokes on my cornflakes, tweeted one shocked parent. Another question, I'm not sure if this was a good choice of DJ to impersonate on the Tweenies today. The BBC quickly issued an apology. This morning, CBeebies broadcast a repeat of an episode of the Tweenies originally made in 2001, featuring a character dressed as a DJ impersonating Jimmy Savile. This program will not be repeated, and we are very sorry for any offense caused. Modern uploads of this episode frequently cut before Max's appearance. The innocent songs about buses and fingers are much easier to take than what viewers now recognize as a deeply troubling portrayal. After all, it's not a good look for a children's show to allegedly unwittingly feature a character emulating a broadcasting his likeness and mannerisms to the very demographic he was notorious for victimizing. Level 5. Popetown, 2005. Popetown began as an ambitious project, a £2.5 million animated sitcom commissioned by BBC Three in 2002 that would never reach its intended British audience. The series was billed by its creators as Father Ted meets South Park, but it sparked immediate backlash even before a single episode aired. The show was set in a fictional Vatican-like setting called Pope Town, where Father Nicholas struggles daily, handling an infantile pope with the emotional maturity of a 4-year-old. This pope wasn't portrayed with dignity, obviously. He bounced around on a cross-shaped pogo stick, refused to bathe for months, and behaved like an obnoxious 7-year-old who reportedly took baths with Father Nicholas. 3 corrupt cardinals secretly ran Pope Town, constantly scheming to enrich themselves behind the Pope's back. Another character, described as an inappropriate priest with deviant tendencies, made regular appearances. The show also featured Sister Penelope, portrayed as an extremely buxom and vain nun, serving as Pope Town's news anchor. Basically, it was everything that could trigger a Catholic in one show, and boy did they see it. Thousands of angry Catholics wrote to the BBC, parishes circulated petitions, and some believers even refused to pay their TV license fees, risking imprisonment in protest at what they deemed one of the biggest blasphemies imaginable. Human rights campaigner James Maudsley declared, "I am not prepared to pay for the Holy Father to be mocked." By September 2004, BBC Three controller Stuart Murphy pulled the plug, stating, "The comic impact of the delivered series does not outweigh the potential offense it will cause." Yet, Pope Town, like Jesus, refused to die. New Zealand's C4 network aired the premiere in June 2005. MTV Germany faced legal challenges when attempting to broadcast it, though a Munich court ultimately ruled the show was too dumb to be insulting. Similar battles played out in Lithuania, where the church's attempt to ban it were rejected. Despite never appearing on British television, Pope Town eventually found its way to audiences through DVD releases in the UK, Australia, and Germany, while various MTV channels worldwide continued broadcasting it. Ultimately, it turned out that the show just couldn't be taken down. Not because it was good, but because the show was just too damn stupid. Skins, 2011. MTV's Skins premiered in January 2011 as an American remake of the acclaimed British teen drama. The original British show had gone on to make many of the biggest young stars on British TV and film, leading the US to try and achieve the same feat. It didn't work. The show featured actual teenagers, aged 15 to 19, rather than adults playing young people, which turned out to be a decision that would prove catastrophic. These amateur actors portrayed characters engaging in explicit behaviors involving substances and intimate encounters that MTV defended as addressing real-world issues confronting teens in a frank way. But the Parents Television Council swiftly branded it the most dangerous television show for children that we have ever seen, and demanded a federal investigation. Their concern centered on whether the production violated laws protecting young individuals, since the performers themselves were underage. Reports claimed that Viacom executives were holding emergency meetings about an upcoming episode featuring Jesse Carrere, a 17-year-old actor running unclothed down a street after consuming enhancement pills. Was it illegal? Could they air it? Before the decision came through, advertisers fled en masse. Taco Bell pulled out first, quickly followed by Wrigley, Subway, Foot Locker, L'Oreal, and General Motors, none of whom wanted to be associated with illegal teen nudity. The financial bleeding led MTV to lose up to $2 million per episode. Audience numbers collapsed nearly as dramatically. Even though the premiere attracted 3.3 million viewers, just 1 week later, viewership plummeted to 1.6 million. Behind the scenes, MTV executives reportedly were running around like mad, attempting to salvage the show by editing controversial content out, effectively making the show totally pointless. Despite MTV's public defense that they were confident all episodes complied with all applicable legal requirements, the controversy could not be stopped. On June 9, 2011, less than 5 months after its debut, MTV canceled Skins. The network diplomatically stated it was a global television phenomenon that unfortunately did not connect with an American audience as much as we had hoped. Ironically, the original British version continued successfully for multiple seasons, never generating any sense of controversy in its home country. If anything, the show was praised for portraying the real experiences of troubled teens. Brass Eye, 1997 to 2001. In July 2001, Channel 4 broadcast Pedogadon, a one-off special of Chris Morris's satirical series Brass Eye that became the most complained about program in British television history. The episode employed Morris's signature deception tactics, tricking celebrities into endorsing fictional campaigns. Phil Collins unwittingly wore a t-shirt emblazoned with "nonsense," while DJ Dr. Fox earnestly declared on camera that certain criminal individuals have more genes in common with crabs than you or me. There's no real evidence for it, but it's scientific fact. Pedogadon featured deliberately provocative content. A man in stocks being asked about their sinister intentions toward a youth, fictional news reports about offenders, and a mock beauty pageant where a young girl appeared with artificially enhanced features, pixelated on screen. One scene showed a man plugging his groin into his computer to derive pleasure from children playing online games. It was totally ridiculous and extremely absurd, but it didn't stop the backlash. Channel 4 received over 2,000 complaints, while broadcasting authorities logged another 1,500. British tabloids labeled it the sickest television show ever, with outraged headlines dominating the front page. Government ministries intervened, despite many admitting they hadn't actually watched the program, only reading the headlines. Home Secretary David Blunkett and Culture Secretary Tessa Joel suggested strengthening regulatory powers to censor offensive content like this blatantly satirical show. Channel 4 executives and Morris himself received death threats, with bomb scares reported at the network studios. The Independent Television Commission ordered Channel 4 to broadcast a public apology for failing to adequately warn viewers about the show's satirical nature, despite it being part of a well-known comedy show. When Channel 4 defiantly repeated the episode in May 2002 with clear warnings, viewership actually increased by 200,000. Today, Pedogadon has achieved cult status, with The Guardian later ranking it among the century's best TV shows. Haven reunion episode. It was December 14th, 2012, and executives at the Sci-Fi Channel had to make a quick decision. Would they air Haven's Season 3 episode Reunion or not? Usually the answer would be a quick and easy yes, but not today. That morning, a tragic incident occurred at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newton, Connecticut, where numerous young victims lost their lives in a devastating attack. The episode that would air later that day centered on Nathan and Duke returning to their former high school to help Audrey stop a troubled and armed individual unleashing mass chaos at a class reunion. The plot specifically involved former student Robbie, who had been bullied as a teenager and returned as a successful motivational speaker. His trouble caused him to transform former classmates back into their teenage forms before eliminating them in ways mirroring how they had tormented him. The similarities between the episode and the Sandy Hook tragedy were too obvious. The network decided to pull the episode from its lineup just hours before broadcast, releasing a statement explaining, "Tonight's scheduled 10 p.m. episode of Haven contained scenes of fictitious violence in a high school. In light of today's tragedy in Newton, Connecticut, we have decided not to air it." They replaced the scheduled episode with a holiday-themed Eureka rerun. The episode eventually aired in January 2013, over a month after its originally planned broadcast date. Level 6. Without a Trace, Our Sons and Daughters episode. The Sons and Daughters episode of Without a Trace begins with the disappearance of high school student Ethan Sawyer. His parents believe him flawless, the ideal scholar athlete with a promise. But as FBI agents dig deeper, they uncover a hidden life beneath Ethan's perfect facade. Hours before vanishing, Ethan returns home from soccer practice with cuts and bruises. And when they question him, Coach Jim Shirley mentions a substance problem that wasn't quite resolved, launching them into a new line of inquiry. The investigation reveals wild parties hosted by Ethan's orphaned friend Alex Durfee at his absent uncle's home, involving teenagers engaging in intimate acts together. As the FBI team continues, they learn of false allegations made against Ethan by Jennifer Norton, his first intimate partner. Pretty soon, the team finds itself in a complicated web of teenage relationships, deception, and shame as they piece together the events leading to his disappearance. The conclusion reveals the shocking truth that Sheriff Phil DeMore ended Ethan's life believing the boy had violated his stepdaughter as part of these parties. The episode's graphic portrayal of teenage intimacy prompted the Federal Communications Commission to impose a $3.6 million fine against CBS in 2006, one of the largest penalties for indecency in television history. The controversial scene depicted teenagers in intimate group situations without showing nudity, but was deemed too explicit and offensive for broadcast standards. Many stations subsequently excluded the episode from syndication packages, effectively removing it from mainstream viewing entirely. Workaholics, To Friend a Predator episode. In May 2011, Comedy Central aired the 8th episode of Workaholics' first season titled To Friend a Predator. The premise centers around Blake, Adam, and Anders attempting to catch someone inappropriate who targets young individuals online. They find a guy, Topher, and plan to expose him. But instead, they become enamored with his lifestyle and personality. Their mission gradually transforms from one of justice to friendship, creating an uncomfortable comedic vibe throughout the 22-minute runtime. Chris D'Elia's performance as Topher was disturbingly convincing, with many noting how he portrayed the character with an unsettling charm that made the audience understand how could appear normal or even appealing. He was the perfect choice for the role. Literally. Years later in 2020, multiple individuals came forward with allegations against D'Elia himself, claiming he had engaged in inappropriate behavior with young women. Many accusers recounted instances where D'Elia allegedly solicited explicit images and videos, manipulated them emotionally, and exhibited controlling behaviors. One user review on IMDb commented, "He somehow managed to perfectly portray a It makes it a whole lot worse knowing the situation in real life." The allegations led Amazon Prime, Hulu, and Paramount Plus to pull the episode from their libraries altogether, while Comedy Central removed it from reruns. D'Elia's stand-up special, White Male, Black Comic, was also removed from circulation. By 2023, 10 more women had come forward with accusations against D'Elia, with 4 claiming they were underage during the alleged inappropriate interactions. D'Elia generally denied these claims while questioning the credibility of some of the women coming forward, a pretty standard Hollywood approach when accused. The irony has never gone away. The show parodying To Catch a Predator caught a predator playing a predator. How about that? Level 7. The O'Reilly Factor, 1996 to 2017, harassment allegations. Bill O'Reilly built his Fox News empire on moral outrage, positioning himself as America's stern guardian of traditional values. His show, The O'Reilly Factor, dominated cable news ratings for years with its "looking out for the folks" mantra. But as is often the case with those who claim moral superiority, behind his righteous facade lurked some troubling behavior that was not at all in line with his public beliefs. In 2004, producer Andrea Macris filed a harassment lawsuit against O'Reilly, alleging he made inappropriate phone calls discussing intimate personal matters despite her expressed discomfort. She claimed he suggested she purchase intimate devices and appeared to pleasure himself during their calls. O'Reilly immediately countersued, claiming Macris was attempting extortion. The case settled quickly for approximately $9 million, with confidentiality agreements so strict that they required parties to call evidence counterfeit or forgeries if ever made public. By 2017, the New York Times revealed O'Reilly and Fox had privately settled with multiple women, totaling $13 million in payouts. One former legal analyst, Liz Weil, received an astounding $32 million settlement to keep quiet about the whole thing. These agreements contained punishing clauses. If breached, women would return all sums paid and forfeit any future payments. Perhaps most shocking, though not unexpected, was Fox News' response. After learning of the $32 million Weil settlement, they renewed O'Reilly's contract anyway. In fact, they even offered him a raise. The decision was met with major backlash, but Fox reveled in the online rage of the liberals. It did not, however, revel in the loss of advertisers. Mercedes-Benz departed first, followed by over 60 other companies withdrawing advertisements. Within weeks, ad time on the program plummeted from 15 minutes to less than 7 minutes per hour. On April 19, 2017, Fox News announced, after thorough review, that O'Reilly will not be returning. His two-decade reign atop cable news ended abruptly and without a goodbye. For years, O'Reilly had lectured others about morality while his own behavior prompted multiple women to come forward with disturbing accounts of unwanted advances, lewd commentary, and intimidation. Like many public figures, he had positioned himself as a moral authority and was undermined by his own flawed moral code. Charlie Rose, 1991 to 2017, misconduct allegations. For decades, Charlie Rose stood as one of broadcasting's most respected interviewers. His self-named PBS talk show, which began in 1991, featured thoughtful conversations with world leaders, celebrities, and intellectuals around his signature oak table. The show's distinctive black backdrop and intimate setting became television landmarks, earning Rose a 7.5 out of 10 IMDb rating and 1,200-plus positive viewer reviews. He was easily one of the greatest interviewers on U.S. television. Time magazine even named Rose among its 100 most influential people in 2014. But, as with many other high-profile men, in November 2017, The Washington Post published accounts from 8 women accusing Rose of inappropriate behavior spanning from the 1990s to 2011. The allegations described unwanted advances, groping, lewd telephone calls, and instances where Rose walked naked in front of female employees. The response was swift and definitive. CBS fired Rose on November 21, 2017. PBS immediately canceled his long-running talk show. Bloomberg TV severed ties as well. Months later, in May 2018, The Washington Post revealed 27 additional women had come forward with similar accounts. CBS management had reportedly been warned about Rose's behavior 3 times over the decades, first in 1986 and most recently in April 2017. And at no point did they do anything to try to stop it. 3 former employees filed a lawsuit against Rose and CBS, detailing how he called one woman China doll while caressing her arms and suggested 2 others become lovers already. CBS ultimately settled the lawsuit, but the damage had become so relentless and never-ending that the fallout showed no signs of going away. CBS This Morning ratings plummeted 16% in the key 25 to 54 demographic following Rose's departure. Executive producer Ryan Cadro resigned amid allegations he ignored complaints about Rose. At 76, Rose's storied legacy, built over 40 years of broadcasting excellence, crumbled under the weight of long-concealed misconduct. If he interviewed himself, I bet he'd have something to say about it. Sons of Guns, 2011 to 2014. From 2011 to 2014, the Discovery Channel aired Sons of Guns, a reality show following Red Jack Firearms, a Louisiana-based custom weapons business. Will Hayden, the company's founder, led viewers firsthand through the world of specialized firearm creation with his adult daughter Stephanie alongside him, highlighting the family-run nature of their operation. The show became hugely popular by showcasing intricate weapons manufacturing, explosive firing demonstrations, and unusual client requests. Viewers tuned in to see the team tackle challenging builds and test remarkable firearms, and Hayden's background as a former Marine established his credibility within the gun community. People just loved the guy, the show, the whole concept. But then, in August 2014, authorities arrested Will on charges involving inappropriate conduct with young people. Initially released on $150,000 bail, more allegations quickly surfaced. Another person came forward with accusations from years earlier. Discovery Channel reacted decisively. The network immediately canceled Sons of Guns, citing the serious and horrific nature of the allegations against Will. A hit show that had just completed its 5th season disappeared from television overnight. Red Jack Firearms acted swiftly too, announcing a complete legal separation from its own founder. They reassured customers they would continue operations, stating, "We are the heart and soul of Red Jacket." Pretty brutal slam on the founder. But then, investigators uncovered a troubling pattern spanning decades, and it all became clear. 2 individuals, one from the 1990s and another from 2014, shared their own accounts of harmful misconduct when they were young. During the 2017 trial, all that testimony proved extremely difficult. One person became physically ill 5 times while recounting their experiences. The jury unanimously convicted Will on multiple serious counts, the judge handing down 2 life sentences plus 40 years without possibility of parole. At 51, Will would remain imprisoned forever. And if you're still craving more disturbing pop culture content, check out this video on the most disturbing movies based on real events.